Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Francis Kennedy M. David, together with my co-researchers Giselle D. De Castro, Janela Rasha E. Gicoso, and our research advisor, Mr. Richard M. Banyas. Today, we are going to present our research entitled Literary Memes as Bibliotherapy for ESL Pre-Service Teachers, Emergency Remote Learning. In response to spread of COVID-19, educational institutions migrated from face-to-face learning to emergency remote learning program. Due to this, students face a challenging phase as the temporary closure of schools requires them to attend online classes. This educational related circumstance makes the home learning program to be more stressful compared with regular classroom setup. According to Goldberstein et al. 2020, it can worsen students' existing mental state problems due to the unique combination of the general public health crisis, social isolation, and economic recession. With the current alterations on delivery mode of instruction, students' academic and social undertakings are limited to home-based activities such as reading books and engaging in various social media platforms to divert their attention from stressful conditions brought by this pandemic. As students spend more time in different social media platforms, millennials have created an emerging expression through their creativity, which is literary memes. Literary memes show witty and honest observations that is used for humor, therapy, gratification, and protest. In search for interventions to help students with emotional problems during pandemic, bibliotherapy is seen as a potential solution. The researchers believe that there is a need to conduct this study, for this will help not just the respondents, who are the future English language and literature teachers, but can also contribute to the body of knowledge in language and literature. For the statement of the problem, first we have what is the respondent's extent of exposure to literary memes? Second, how may the respondent's assessment on the significance to literary memes as bibliotherapy for online learning be described? And lastly, is there a significant relationship between the respondent's exposure and assessment of literary memes as bibliotherapy for online learning?
Methodology. The researchers used descriptive correlational design in conducting this undertaking, for it will focus on describing the relationship between variables and is best suited method to determine the significant relationship between pre-service English teachers' extent of exposure to literary memes and assessment of significance of literary memes as bibliotherapy in emergency remote learning. Displayed on your screen is the research paradigm. The first column of the table shows the independent variable of the study, which is the respondent's extent of exposure to literary memes. The second column presents the dependent variable of the study, which is the respondent's assessment of significance to literary memes as bibliotherapy in remote learning. The arrow from the first column directing to the second shows the process to be done with the variables. The independent and dependent variables will be correlated in order to analyze and interpret the relationship between them. The respondents of this study are the pre-service English teachers of Batangas State University, JPLPC Malvar, for the academic year 2020 to 2021. The researchers considered them as the respondents, for they will teach language and literature in the future, and it will help them to create new strategies and techniques in teaching language and literature. As for the data gathering procedure, Researchers made questionnaire was used to obtain the data from the respondents. It has two major divisions. The first part is for the independent variable, and the latter focuses on the dependent variable. Each consists a 10-item statement with a 4-point rating scale. In order to interpret the data and determine the significant relationship between the variables, the researchers used mean and standard deviation and Pearson correlation as the statistical tool.
For the discussion of results, this graph shows the result of the collected data for the SOP1 extent of exposure to literary memes. Statement: I send literary memes to my friends and family whenever I find it funny, garnered the highest score with an average of 3.41, followed by the statement: I receive literary memes from my friends and family with an average of 3.20. The statement with the third highest score with an average of 3.19 is I share literary memes through social media. The next graph shows the result of the garnered data for SOP2, assessment on the significance of literary memes as bibliotherapy in emergency remote learning. Statement: it brings a sense of enjoyment and entertainment, garnered the highest score with an average of 3.55, followed by the statement: it enables me to connect and humorously communicate with my friends with an average of 3.55. For the significant relationship of extent of exposure and assessment of significance, the computed Pearson R and t-test values reveal moderate positive relationship between exposure and assessment of literary memes as bibliotherapy for emergency remote learning. This moderate positive relationship suggests that an increase of exposure to literary memes will enable an individual to see its therapeutic and aesthetic values in dealing with the challenges of emergency remote learning. Based on the findings, the researchers came up with these conclusions. First, the ESL pre-service teachers are moderately exposed to literary memes as alternative mean of communication in establishing emotional connectivity. Second, literary memes afforded the pre-service teachers to maintain positive outlook and sense of enjoyment despite the challenges of emergency remote learning. And lastly, there is a moderate positive relationship between the pre-service teacher's extent of exposure and assessment of literary means as bibliotherapy for emergency remote learning.
Based on the aforementioned conclusions, the following recommendations were drawn. First, educators may utilize literary memes as teaching tools in communicating important concepts and ideas in support to academic relaxation during emergency remote learning. Second, officers of various student organizations may promote the use of literary memes in disseminating information and maintaining positive outlook among students as response to the challenges of emergency remote learning. Third, as exposure is found to be moderately related to the assessment of literary memes as bibliotherapy, a webinar on the therapeutic and aesthetic values of literary memes as an emerging literary form and communication aid may be initiated. Lastly, future researches capturing other characteristics and practical applications of this emerging literary genre are also encouraged. And that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for listening. Once again, have a good day.